Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Noxious Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day for Tuesday, May 30th, 2017. With me today, we have Eric making his comeback. Thank you. Haven't seen you since we did that episode 3 rewatch. That was a lot of fun.
That was a blast.
People really enjoyed it, so thank you again for coming back.
No problem.
And also with us today is the man who chastises me every time I try to do a rewatch past his bedtime. We have Hal. He's back.
Hey.
You know what? It's funny that you're on tonight because I just got an email from somebody saying, when are you going to have Hal back?
Oh, wow.
He's incredibly intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. Get him back on the show. So,
that's sweet, whoever said that. Thank you.
Hopefully that person's watching tonight.
And I just want to say, Cameron, that, I don't need to be here. I want to be here.
There you go.
Very good.
Yes. Just like my cat when she saw those Twin Peaks action figures.
So, right. Speaking of those Twin Peaks action figures, originally they were that higher price, and then Amazon had them for a lower price, and they shipped them to me, and it came down like the pre-order price guarantee. It was like $18.99 as the final price. So I was excited about that.
Well, I was surprised because the figures are only about that big. in the picture, they look a lot bigger.
I'm supposed to get mine Friday, so I'm looking forward to it.
But I also want to give out a shout to James. He and I did a Thought of the Day podcast yesterday, and we went for like an hour and 20 something minutes, and not once, Eric, did he yell animal life.
Well, there's new things to yell, like hello,
but he didn't even go there. He didn't. He squeaked his shoes, and brought out my inner Gordon Cole. But other than that, there wasn't any crazy vocalizations, which was absolutely wonderful. But first things first, Hal, you have not been here since the premiere, so I have to ask you. What did you think of the first 4 episodes of this new Twin Peaks?
So I kind of was glad not to kind of jump on and give my thoughts, because I've been marinating and steeping in them and letting it wash over me. And I am all in. I'm 100% all in on the new Twin Peaks. I really did try to blank my mind out when it started and go in with zero expectations. Even though, I was so familiar with seasons 1 and 2, and, certainly there was some expectation about where I wanted it to go, but I really tried to take that out of my mind and just let it happen. And it's been rewarding to do it that way. And on the rewatch, you get more stuff out of it, but I absolutely love it. It is, surpassed my wildest expectations of what it may be or could be. And, it's so cool to see it back and creating that, water cooler buzz again. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Even though people don't even have water coolers anymore, it's still
exactly.
It's still creating that buzz. Would you agree with me that kind of the mantra I've been saying over and over again about this new series is it's everything I wanted it to be in a form I didn't expect.
Exactly.
Because they're giving me everything I wanted.
Yes.
But they are not pandering to the fans. But they're still giving you what you want, right?
Exactly.
We got Cooper out of the Black Lodge.
Yes.
We got Cooper drinking coffee. We got Cooper doing thumbs up. We got a lot of that stuff, right?
Yes.
We have James at the Roadhouse. We have Albert and Gordon, right? But all of these scenes with them are subverting our expectations and yet giving us exactly what we want. I mean, I'm telling you, David Lynch is giving like the best performance of his life in this show, and we're only 4 episodes at 4 seasons, and don't I wish? But I mean, I haven't seen him actually give a performance like this since Zelly and Me, where he was the romantic lead to Isabella Rossellini in that film.
Yeah.
But just that scene at the tarmac with him and Albert, the one that's all in blue.
Yeah.
And which, the first time I saw that scene, I was a little thrown back, like, why is this all in blue? You're right, because I know they're talking about the Blue Rose and all that stuff, but, I was like, this isn't through a window. This is just outside. It's not day for night. Why is this all blue? And then, of course, on rewatch, you know, we have the lavender room, we have the gray room, you know, all these scenes that are filmed in different colors. And so you start to think that this is like David Lynch does Dario Argento or something. Every once in a while, you have just a scene filmed in entirely different color. You know, much like the Wizard of Oz, right? Instead of a horse with a different color, we have a scene with a different color.
Even the first scene in episode 1 was black and white, like the Wizard of Oz.
Right, which some people are throwing out that if we're dealing with this whole is it future, is it past, some people are already throwing out the theory that that scene with the giant is not the beginning of this new show, but it actually is going to take place later in the season, and maybe Cooper gets brought back into the lodge before he can come fully out again. If what we are to theorize about the whole Rancho Rosa situation, if it is a different time or if it is an alternate reality or something like that, then he would probably have to come back through. You know,
I'm betting that's true. Yeah, I'm betting that takes place in the future.
Right. Now,
whatever the future is.
You're coming into this podcast. We've been discussing theories and ideas for the last few days about it. So I'm just going to bring you into these and then we can discuss other things within that. But Eric, yesterday, Debbie from this podcast drops a bombshell, and I make a video about it, which it's amazing how this has, I wouldn't say polarized people, but it's gone from this is right on, I feel like this is the way we're heading, to this is complete crap. There's no way Frost and Lynch are doing this. Get this out of your head. Now, I'm somewhere in the middle because, I mean, again, it's an idea. It's a theory, and something that we like to do. A lot of people like to do in fan communities is theorize and speculate and look at clues and all that type of stuff. And, you know, we'll see what pans out. But the idea was, is it possible that because the evil Cooper has, you know, the cards and the the metal briefcase and the needing the coordinates and you know, seeing Major Briggs and, you know, referring to Gordon Cole's old buddy and that type of thing. Is it possible that when Bob extracted Wyndham Earle's soul in the Black Lodge and took it, and the doppelganger got out and Bob hitched a ride, could Bob also have impregnated this doppelganger Cooper with Wyndham Earle's memories? I mean, could Wyndham Earle reside in the doppelganger as well as the doppelganger and Bob? I understand it's getting confusing, but is it possible that Wyndham Earle still lives on in the doppelganger?
In Bad Coop's doppelganger?
Yes. Some people are saying no because obviously, Wyndham Earle's dead, or he doesn't act like Wyndham Earle, which I totally believe that. But in terms of just specific little things, right? I mean, he's got the metal suitcase. He's typing into the FBI. Obviously, I mean, he could be using Cooper's stuff, but obviously the FBI would also be, hey, Cooper just logged in, you know. So I mean, maybe, you know, Earl's got a different way of logging in. You know, I don't know, Eric. I mean, I know you kind of came out. We're like, I don't know about this, but I mean, what's your idea about it?
Well, I think my reaction to it was simple. I think because it might have been something you said, or maybe something someone else said in the comments for that episode, where it just like, well, you know, because like, how would Cooper, you know, he's doing a lot of things that Earl would do. How could Cooper know to do it? And the only thing that I just want to like temper some of that reaction with is just, you know, for us, you know, we all know it's been 25 years, but just to kind of remind people that it has been 25 years, and Doppelganger Cooper, you know, whatever he actually is, has been out in the world for that long. The kinds of things he could have learned, the kinds of tools he could have acquired, the kinds of connections he could have made. We've already seen some of that. You know, it's we have no idea the kinds of what he's been up to. Again, right. Some of that I'm guessing we're going to learn in the final dossier once the show's over, when it comes out in October.
I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more in the next 14 episodes. So
absolutely, just from the parts of the remaining show. So that was just my reaction. It's just to try and because I think sometimes when you listen to like David Lynch being interviewed and talking about things, he says things like that, you know, like he thinks about it in a straightforward way. So sometimes I think the fan community likes to come up with these outlandish theories about things when really there's just a straightforward, he has the metal case because he has the metal case. Like there's nothing special to it. But to give you and to give Debbie and to some of the other people that are talking about this credit, it is true. And again, I didn't even think about it until the video. It is true that there's just a lot of cues about the way he's behaving and doing things. And then there was the bonsai tree in the room with the glass box.
Right.
You know, just lots of little visual touches that kind of remind one of Wyndham Earl that, you know, I'm not, again, we're only 4 parts in. I'm not willing to throw anything out the window. It sounds like it's...
And the doppelganger could have, because Earl was in the lodge, right?
Yeah.
He could have easily, I mean, if any of Wyndham Earl's memories are in him, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have anything when he got out of the lodge. So he could have raided Wyndham Earl's cabin and grabbed his stuff.
Right.
I mean, doesn't necessarily mean he's Wyndham Earl, but it could mean that he has the memories of Earl and knows, you know, how to patch into stuff and do stuff and that type of thing. Like how to work with Albert, how to work with Philip Jeffries, you know, that type of thing, you know, I mean,
or it could just be on that. So. Yeah, see, that's the thing is what the meaning I take out of it as far as, because we talked about this before, that I disagree a little bit about the nature of the doppelganger and Bob and whether are they one of the same, are they working together, whatever.
But David Lynch did say you can call him whatever you want.
Right. Well, right. And he's always going to say that. Right. But I mean, I think my view though is that whether Bob's in him or not, my conception of doppelganger Cooper is that he is literally Cooper, our Cooper, but just taken down to his most, almost. I'm a Star Trek guy. I think of it, put a goatee on him. This guy's got long hair. He's our Cooper. He knows everything that our Cooper would know, but he doesn't have that innate goodness. He doesn't have that desire for knowledge, at least the pursuit of knowledge in a good way. He's a shark. And in fact, Kyle MacLachlan was interviewed by, I forget where the interview was, Vanity Fair or something, where that's how he described evil Cooper, doppelganger Cooper. He's a shark. He's playing him that like he is just Cooper at his most base. He's out there to achieve his goals, to, cause pain, suffering, whatever it might be. But there's nothing extra to him. He's very straightforward, and that's why, and you made reference to when we first see him in that first episode, just the way he handles that guy at the door with the shotgun. No wasted energy. Just completely like drops the guy to the ground, right straight into the point. Whereas our Cooper is very circumspect. He's throwing rocks at bottles. He's very much about the investigative method.
He took out Blackie's sister real fast. He grabbed her hand and punched her in the stomach.
Well, and that's true too. Like Cooper as a man of action was very straightforward. So this is perhaps, that raw side of Cooper like that. So, but again, my point in saying this is that I just think of him as Cooper knowing everything Cooper would know, but just without Cooper's better angels. I mean, this is evil Cooper. So as a result, he would know FBI procedures and policy and those kinds of things.
Right. But at the end of the show, right, we see Bob in the reflection.
Right.
And so the way I'm leaning right now is because he looks similar to Bob, right? And the last thing we saw was the doppelganger with Bob in the reflection. Right. I am going to wait for the show to tell me something different.
Right.
So right now I'm looking at it as the doppelganger is the doppelganger, and Bob could come in and out of him if he pleases. Some people have brought up to me like, well, he wouldn't be possessing him all the time because, like Leland, he likes the game of it, of like entering him as a young boy and, kind of, messing with, a goodness and that type of thing. But obviously he's not going to just sit around in the doppelganger Cooper all the time. But
right.
I think that he is a safe vessel to kind of bounce back and forth from and come into. But until the show says for certain it's only the doppelganger, Bob is somewhere in totally else. He's in Matthew Lillard or in somebody else or whatever.
Right.
Then that's when I'll change my tune. But right now, as far as I'm aware, Bob is occupying the doppelganger because he's moving with, like you're talking about the guy on the stairs. That's the way Bob would handle somebody if Bob was a real life person walking around, he'd be that kind of badass, and traveling the road with that music so slow. That American Woman song is like, it sounds like Bob when he was killing Madeline, just slow down. You know what I mean? And it just.
But doesn't that seem the opposite though? Because think about it, he drew out her death. He tried to make that last as long as possible.
He's not gonna suck on some guy with a shotgun's chin. You know?
I get that part. I think my only point is that for that, you're I mean, it's true. It's a different circumstance, but my view, because to your point, like, let's use the show. What has the show given us? We know from the things that we've learned in the show, Bob takes a person, and his goal, while we're not entirely clear on it, it's pain and suffering. Garmin Bosia. We know, Leland invited him in when he was a boy. He's drawing that suffering out of Leland. He gets a game of it. There's fun and games out of that. He kills people with Leland's vessel as a way of earning more of that to himself.
But
whereas evil Cooper is evil in of himself. Like, what pain and suffering is he drawing out of Cooper himself?
But why is Bob inside Leland for so long that he waits until Leland is in his mid-40s to commit the first murder, Teresa Banks? I mean, what the hell was he doing in Leland for that long?
I mean, I would make the case there's a lot we still don't know. It's entirely plausible Bob was doing other things that we just don't. I mean, maybe that's what this show will tell us. It could be that maybe once he drained everything he could out of Leland, like kind of brought him down to his basest form, a guy who would cheat on his wife, a guy who would, get into bad business dealings with Ben Horn. Once he was at that state, he couldn't suck any more goodness out of Leland. It was gone. So he needed to use Leland as a pure vessel of killing people, raping, doing terrible things. Plus, once he had Laura, it was kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna ride this guy out because she's who I really want. She's got the good stuff.
Right.
Again, we're theorizing. I mean, it's all, and again, you've got the trump card, because at the end of the day, when he looked in the mirror, he saw Bob's face. I've presented my theories on that, why I think that's true.
Well, and also
I agree with you that they're working together in some fashion.
Well, when he walks into that shack in the first episode, he just goes, "Hi, Otis," and then sits down in the chair and sits exactly the way Bob does in those Above the Convenience Store scenes, where he's just kind of like just sitting there, looking around, kind of glances. He's kind of at peace with wherever he is because he knows he's the man. He turns around and there's like a little person and a giant sitting in the shack. It's just so bizarre. It's almost like they're building their own sort of convenience stores in that moment. But how Eric and I have been going back and forth on this. What do you think?
Please weigh in.
I tend to agree with pretty much everything Eric was saying as far as
damn.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Wyndham Earl theory is a cool one. And
no. I'm talking about the Bob thing.
Oh, the Bob thing. It's kind of like the Red Room sequences. We never thought we would explore the Red Room to the degree that they're showing us. So there's other aspects of Bob that I'm sure we don't know yet, as far as his behavior and exactly how he operates and what his ultimate goal is. So I think it's yet to be revealed. And I also think you go into dangerous territory, even though that's part of the fun of Twin Peaks, to try to figure it out. I don't know that it all makes a logical sense. I think it's more just impressionistic stuff.
True, but at the same time, I think there are some concrete things that you can, I mean, we know that Bob was in Leland. There are some concrete things. I think that they will lay out who's in who. I think by the end of the series. So,
but I agree that it's interesting to ponder. If he's been inside Bad Coop for 25 years without flitting in and out. I mean, we haven't seen that section of time exactly what Bad Coop's behavior was, if Bob goes in and out of him, or whether he's been inhabiting him the entire time. And if he has, why is he staying in that vessel constantly when he didn't do that with Leland? So that's an interesting question.
We've been speculating for, I don't know, since the show came out, that, who is this billionaire that's running this glass box thing in New York?
Right.
We've had people say it's Wyndham Earl because of the bonsai tree.
Right.
People say, no, it's Audrey Horne. But I'm not feeling that right now, just because if I don't know. It just I don't know, it doesn't feel quite right. I don't, to me.
No.
I could be wrong. Some people have said it could be John Justice Wheeler doing it for Audrey Horne because he was rich. I mean, that would be but and another thing is that people are saying it could be Evil Cooper that's doing this, that perhaps he's been using Dougie's money that he's been gambling and owing all this money, using that money and making people watch this glass box waiting for Cooper to get out. I mean, there's so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's what I absolutely love about this new show, is that we can look at each episode and go, and just like the original show, when some people say to me, well, this doesn't feel like Twin Peaks, this is a different Twin Peaks. It's like, yeah, it does feel a little different, but the same outcome is happening. People are on the phone with their friends. We're doing these videos, and we're still talking about each episode from week to week. And that has always been Frost and Lynch's game plan, was to make you dream about it, think about it for the next 6 days until the next episode.
And only Lynch and Frost have the right to say what is and isn't Twin Peaks. It's our job as fans to say wherever they take it is Twin Peaks. We don't really have the right to say, oh, that's not Twin Peaks, because it obviously is.
Well, I think they just refer to like the feeling, like they don't feel like we're back in the jokey, even Joel Bacco, who does the series Lost of the Movies on YouTube and on his blog, he's mentioned that the Lucy Andy stuff that we were talking about, Eric, the other day, he said that the feeling of those scenes are much more like the sheriff scenes we see in The Missing Pieces than the sheriff scenes we see in the show, just because there isn't that jazzy music. And while it's funny, it's not playing up the humor. It's still like kind of still quiet and downbeat about it all. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. I do have to say that the Lucy Andy stuff, while it doesn't work for some people, I think it does get better on the rewatch. And I think that Wally Brando scene, which the first time you see it, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people do like it right away, but I know a lot of people were like literally like Gordon Cole, what the hell? And then, but when you rewatch it, it's a lot of fun.
I loved Wally Brando the first time. I mean, it's just those scenes that come out of nowhere that seem to have no point, that test your endurance as far as the length of them. But that's Twin Peaks. That is Twin Peaks, and I found that scene extremely lovable.
But on the rewatch, I think what makes that scene work, it's not Michael Cera, it's not Lucy and Andy, it's Robert Forster's reaction of having to stand there and take this.
Yeah.
Right. And then when he turns and walks away, his face does this. He's just so horrified that he had to stand there that long. And I think that's just because we're kind of getting impatient with the scene, and so is Robert Forster. And that's the just kind of the humor of it, I think, is the reaction.
Yeah, I noticed they're putting a lot of proxies in there like that, like his reaction, Sheriff Truman's reaction is kind of our reaction. And even, Lynch himself saying, what the hell? Or, Dougie going, that's weird. It's kind of like he's putting that stuff in there kind of as a proxy for the audience's reaction. And it just adds that.
I don't know which is better, though. I don't know which is better. Lynch saying, what the hell? Or my other favorite one is, holy jumping George. Because that was my reaction when they showed the doppelganger's, mugshot. I mean, Cooper looks so bad in that picture. And of course, you have to keep in mind, they haven't seen him in 25 years. And that's their first image of him.
Yes.
I can totally see Gordon going, holy jumping George.
Exactly. That scene was so well done. The tone of that scene was just so perfect when he sits down and goes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk to Special Agent Dale Cooper. And that screen rises slowly and Bad Coop's sitting there giving the thumb. It just gave me shivers, man.
It's creepy.
So creepy.
It's creepy. Yeah. And of course, I was creeped out by the scene right after that too, because I kind of have this weird theory in my head that I think there's some sort of relationship going on between Gordon and Tamara Preston. Until they say, no, it's not happening. I don't know. It's so weird because when he goes to see Denise,
Denise thinks so, yeah.
Denise says, I know your type, Gordon.
Yeah.
Agents under 30. And of course, I'm thinking, yeah, he did have a thing for Shelley, right? I mean, he didn't even leave town without giving her a kiss. And
you better revisit that relationship, in my opinion. That's the expectation I have. Another makeout scene with Gordon and Shelley.
If we get a cat fight between Shelley and Tamara Preston, all right, you know that I can live with that. But I mean, even in the 4th episode, the show stops to turn and pan down and show Christabel's ass as she walks away. I mean, you cannot get around that. It totally just does.
Well, as a director, it would have been hard to frame that any other way. That shot.
But then it cuts to Albert going, now I feel better. And then it cuts back to Christabel's ass as she walks away. And I know the feeling is probably like, I feel better that she's out of the situation, that we can talk privately. But the way it's cut makes it look like a joke of him saying, now I feel better now that I see her ass. You know?
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely the joke.
Yeah, exactly. Because even my wife was like, are they checking out her ass? I was like, like it's not even a subtle. It's right there on the on the screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know. I even though a lot of people said, no, Gordon's a straight shooter and he's not doing anything with Tamara. And I understand that. But the thing is that got me was that right after Denise made this accusation, Gordon fired back with, you were a wild thing, Denise, you know, and, you know, I had information I could bury you the size of the Grand Canyon.
Right.
So he's letting Denise know, listen, you know, I didn't do this. I could have done this. I could have buried you. I didn't. So why don't you overlook my foibles too?
Right.
You know,
that's kind of the implication.
Yeah.
There's actually a little bit of retconning done in that scene that no one's really talking about. And, you know, I don't think anyone minds. But just the comment, when you were working for me undercover at the DEA. Because previously, Denise was always just a DEA agent. Was there ever any revelation that she used to work for the FBI? I thought she worked for the DEA. Whereas in that scene, what Gordon says is essentially retconning like she was never a DEA agent. She was there in the DEA undercover for him or for the FBI. Like that's, again, it's not a major story point, but it's,
I don't know if it's necessarily retconning it, but I mean, it's Denise at the DEA. I mean, we never really heard anything. You know, we didn't get into much specifics except that she was stationed in Oakland, which is hilarious.
Well, no, but she was a DEA agent. I mean, that was her role, to investigate Cooper's connection with the drugs and the Canadians and whatever. Like I say, it's not a major point, but I just thought it was interesting that they've kind of forged this relation. They can now build a relationship between them now by saying, well, she was just undercover for the FBI and the DEA. Like I said, it will probably amount to nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Well,
I just
keep
thought
in mind too that, you know, David Duchovny was in episodes that Lynch had nothing to do with in the new series.
Right.
I'm sorry, in the original series. So for him to have a scene with Denise, it's kind of wonderful because, you know, that is part of season 2 that Lynch likes to write off. And
he mentioned her, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he's the one who said it was Agent Denise Bryson coming. Like, it was, again, one of the ones he says he wasn't involved in. Maybe he just did the audio for his phone speaking scene. But I'm pretty sure he was the one who told Cooper who it was that was coming from the DEA to investigate him.
Right.
And I think he said Denise Bryson. So he participated at least in that.
But the thing is, though, Cooper does say Dennis Bryson as you know, and then David.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Walked in. So. Yeah. You know, and I love Hawk's reaction to that, but by the way, from the original show. But I mean, Hal, what do you think? I mean, I know this is silly and completely, you know, irrelevant to the overall Twin Peaks mythology, but do you think there's some sort of weird thing going on between Gordon and like the FBI agents, female agents? I mean, enough for Denise, who's now Gordon's boss, to bring this up.
I mean, I hope they're not trying to foreshadow an Achilles heel for Gordon, you know, because of his past flirtation with Shelley and now with Tamara. You know, the implication there. I hope they're not kind of setting up where Gordon, you know, likes young women, and that's going to be somehow his Achilles heel or downfall. I think it's just maybe I think it's maybe just David Lynch's ego that he likes to look at the young girls in those scenes. I don't know.
Well,
I hope it doesn't amount to a major plot point.
Right. How do you feel about Krista Bell as Tamara Preston? Are you with me thinking that she's doing her best to give a Vampira impression, from Ed Wood?
I think that's just her. I saw her on the red carpet at the premiere thing, right. And she just always comes off that way, where she's just almost like cartoonish in her femme fatale thing.
I know. I told somebody, I said, Krista Bell is playing Krista Bell playing Tamara Preston.
Yes,
right.
She kind of just glides in there like she is like doing some sort of, I don't know, like I said, like just the only thing that came when she comes out of the when they're gonna walk to the car or whatever, before she's like car sick and has her head out the window. I mean, she just walks out like she's on like some catwalk or something. Like,
right. But according to Gordon, she's got the stuff, and if you
she's got the stuff, all right.
If you take Mark Frost's book into account, she's the one that did all those.
But Eric and I were talking about this the other day. I don't think that the book's version of Tamara Preston is what we're seeing in the show.
It doesn't seem to dovetail together. No,
it's disappointing to me because honestly, the book version of this character seems better to me. She seems a little smarter, a little more on the ball, someone who's very discerning.
Yes.
Whereas the show version, she just comes off very one note. And fair to say, she hasn't been in it that much to make too much of an impression. It's just that her first impression isn't great, and then the continuing bits we get from her, like I just keep thinking back to the blue scene where Gordon's like, "You're wearing a wire." Well, you told me to. Go. It's just like, duh. You just come on. It's
and
not.
And that's another thing that made me think they could be in a relationship, because that's the way you would address like a boyfriend that's annoying you, not your boss.
That's true. And, and maybe that will come back to haunt Gordon, that he's given her a chance based on his, visual attraction to her or whatever. And she does somehow, fuck up the case or something like that, because, if she's assigned that the archivist's materials, maybe, I don't know, maybe she doesn't have the stuff. Maybe Gordon's eyes are clouded. Who knows?
I more thought that thing about him making her wear a wire and some of the weird stuff like that was more akin to like the kind of games that Gordon plays, like Lil from Fire Walk With Me, and just having weird codes and stuff. I think it's more like that we're supposed to believe that Gordon is just this kind of weird character who does strange kind of insular things with the people who work for him. You may be 100% right. That was just more what I got of it. He made her wear a wire so that literally when they wanted to have a sensitive moment, he could say, well, you are recording right now, so I can send you away. Like it was purely a power play by Gordon because he plays these weird games.
Or maybe he had her wear the wire because Denise had some suspicions about his intentions with her, and so everything's recorded,
Right. Well, there you go. And there's another very straightforward take on it. I like that. I think, frankly, I think that's more plausible. But that's the point. It's like I don't know that it's. I think it's just something like that. Is kind of my take on it.
Eric, this podcast is for the hardcore of the hardcore Twin Peaks fans,
like the show itself.
The fact that you felt the need to explain who Lil was, that she came from Firewalk. There's only one Lil in this thing, man.
I just wanted to, just quickly give people grounding. That's all.
If somebody is watching this podcast and does not know Twin Peaks backwards and forwards, they need to leave and come back later.
Fair enough. All
right. So
one thing, Damon Lindelof was on a podcast for Entertainment Weekly, and it's funny because they get into some of the theorizing. At one point, and the guy says, do you have a theory about who's pounding in the space station? Mother's coming, and the pounding. Who is that? And Lindelof goes, and this is a quote. He goes, "Let's just bask in the amazingness of that question. Who is pounding on the outside of the space station?" Before that episode aired, if I had said to you that, you'd be asking me that question regarding Twin Peaks, we would have just like high-fived each other and wept, because it's like, who would have thought it would have gone in that direction?
Yes, but as much as I like Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse and their work on Lost, they were a big fan of like throwing out tons and tons of questions and delighting and pissing people off by not answering them for the longest times. You know, Lynch and Frost, at least they don't make it last years and years and years and years to find out who the Hurley bird was and stuff like that in an outtake. So
Right.
But
the Hurley bird. Okay, well, hold on.
Okay,
If we're gonna
no,
go
no.
down the story, I need to explain that the Hurley bird wasn't even meant to be. It was just a thing. It was a gift for the fans. The fans thought they were picking up on something, and they made it into something purely because the fans heard that. A bird. Again, if people aren't familiar with Lost, and in one episode there is a bird that kind of flies by and makes this sound. And it was never intended as anything but just a bird, with a caw sound. But some fans thought the bird sounded like it was saying Hurley, one of the characters on Lost.
Right.
So as kind of an in-joke, as a response, they were almost kind of sending up the fans at that point. They made it out to be that, oh no, well, the bird actually was doing it. And they even had Hurley comment. He's like, did that bird just say my name? And then later, at the very, very end of the show, they did this kind of little wrap-up segment and created the fact that the Darva Initiative, which, again, I won't get into that, but
here's the thing.
There was a genetically engineered bird that could talk, and it said Hurley.
I really liked Lost a lot.
Yeah.
Right? But Frost and Lynch are much better at what they do than Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof ever were.
I think Cuse and Lindelof reacted to the fans a lot, and that was fun for that show, but I'm so glad Lynch and Frost aren't taking the same approach.
Well, because they catered to the fans, played with the fans, toyed around with them. Lynch and Frost don't give a shit about the fans. They're just doing whatever they want to do.
Listen, because the Lost fan in me, I want to rise to their defense somewhat. I think I think there are some fans of Twin Peaks who are also fans of Lost that give Frost and Lynch a lot more freedom to just not answer things or do whatever that they never gave to Lindelof and Carlton Cuse. Because I'm on the record as saying there are questions on Lost, there are situations on Lost that I never like. What is the island? I never expected there to be some kind of concrete answer to that question. That I think there are fans who are also fans of Twin Peaks that are pissed off they didn't get that answer. So I feel the need to rise up to defend Lost a little bit and Carlton Cuse and Lindelof on that stuff. I think we're playing with fan expectations. We're not being consistent with our beliefs.
But I will say this though: Lynch and Frost finish season 3 and then air it. Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof adjust season 3 to what the fans. Oh, you don't like these new fans or these new characters? We're going to throw them in the sand and bury them alive.
But I think they didn't like them before the fan backlash.
Yes, that's correct.
They decided that they would write them out, and I thought that episode was great.
It's a great episode. What I'm saying though is they were reactionary to a lot of things.
Yes, they were.
And Lynch and Frost have never been that way.
But the reaction to the fans thing also resulted in cool stuff like how did Montan lose his arm?
Yeah,
it's like that was a fan reaction thing that was great when it happened. We got to actually see that play out.
Right. I think to be honest, I think it's somewhat apples and oranges to compare the two shows and to compare the reactions, because we talked about this before. Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse are sort of the height of the showrunner as this almost sort of rock star figure who's out there giving interviews and stuff. When Twin Peaks came along, the idea of a showrunner running a writing room was somewhat, other than and I forget the gentleman's name who did Moonlighting. He was maybe the prototype of that. And then Twin Peaks came out, and David Lynch and Mark Frost kind of became that sort of in a way. But it was really they kind of pioneered that stuff. Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, they came in and then embodied that role. So to sort of, again, I think to sort of judge them on different standards, it's apples and oranges. I don't think you can compare the two things. I agree, and certainly not judging them. I was a huge fan of Lost. Lost had this,
But the thing is,
show that impacted me like Peaks did.
Well, I really enjoyed Lost, but in retrospect, you can go back and actually see what mattered and what didn't matter. I mean, I loved. Okay, I don't want to just turn this into a Lost podcast for goodness sake, but I mean, I loved season 2 of Lost. Loved it, but in retrospect, it's a complete waste of time because all the characters they introduced are gone. The only ones left is Bernard, and he hides out in the woods with Rose for the rest of the damn season or series.
Well, it's not.
So,
well, again, the new characters introduced go nowhere, but there are story threads.
No, yes, but what I'm saying though is that all the new characters introduced is just, I'm just saying there's a lot of things in Lost that in retrospect you go, that really worked, that didn't work so much. There's a lot of hits and misses in there.
And you can do that.
Some of it was circumstantial.
Because Twin Peaks didn't last long enough for you to be able to tear it apart like that, even though people like to do the second season.
But you could.
We sit out here and we talk about Evelyn and James, and we talk about Little Nicky. You gotta be kidding
No,
me.
you talk about Evelyn, James, Little Nicky. I have no problem with that stuff. I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's terrible either. So,
but why was Mr. Echo's story built up and then it disappeared? Because the actor wanted to leave.
Well, they fired him.
Why did Josie get in the drawer pulled? Because she wanted to leave.
Right.
But the thing is, though, is that Mr. Echo is killed so like randomly, and it's just and it's just like, huh, what? At least the Josie thing, it does happen out of nowhere, but at least it was building up to a confrontation with her character, as opposed to Mr. Echo just happened to be in the jungle one day and what.
Mr. Echo's death reveals a really important story point about the monster. Again, we learned something about both the character of Echo and the monster in that episode that we didn't know before. We theorized about it. It actually gives us his death actually gives us an answer about that entity, about that character on the show.
All right. Well, okay. We'll have to.
I'm just saying. Well, again, if you want to start the debate, let's have the debate, because I agree that. If you want to compare Josie and Mr. Echo, like what really comes of Josie's death? Like we don't really get anything out of that. We get something out of Mr. Echo's death, though.
You did get some stuff out of Josie. I mean, it did create a turning point in Harry Truman that we had.
Well, that's true.
That we had not seen.
We definitely get a lot out of Harry Truman's character from that. Again, something fans pick on. I actually like that storyline. I think that a lot of that stuff is good, even though Michael Hanke may not be up to the task of some of those scenes.
I'm not bashing Lost at all. I'm just saying that I think Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof were the closest we got to a Frost and Lynch type of thing for this type of show. But the thing is, though, is that when you look at this new Twin Peaks. And you look at, let's say, the last season of Lost, which there's lots of things I liked about it. I loved the finale of Lost, but I think that so much of season 6 felt like time filler to me too. So at least what I'm saying is that after the epicness of Lost season 5, season 6 is not quite as great as you want it to be, because 5 is amazing, right? I'm just saying that
disagree with that.
I think Lynch and Frost, they went in with high expectations. We all went in with high expectations. And except for, some people who just aren't going to get on board with it, and I understand it, I think they've surpassed what we all were expecting. And let's be honest here, every single one of us that have been Twin Peaks fans since we saw the finale in Fire Walk with Me have all conjured in our minds what we think the next installment is going to be like. Lynch and Frost went completely the opposite direction, gave us nothing that any of us thought we were going to get, and yet managed to satisfy 90% of the fans. So that to me is what makes them like, wow, there's movie makers and then there's filmmakers. And that's why I think Lynch and Frost are showing that they have the stuff.
So after
they have 25 years to do it, but yes.
And after the first 4 hours, what's your confidence level now that Lynch and Frost are going to stick the ending, unlike Lost, where a lot of people were ambivalent about the ending?
But see, again, I think it's apples and oranges, because I don't know that I have a conception of what I would want the end of Twin Peaks to even be. I'll be honest, I don't even know what this new season, series, movie, whatever we want to call it, I don't even know what this is. And I mean that in a good way. Like, I don't know the story that it's trying to tell. We know the story so far appears to be Dale Cooper coming back to the world. What's his doppelganger been up to? But I don't even know what kind of ending would seem to satisfy this story. Which, again, a good thing.
I mean, I don't think
Lost, I had expectations.
I don't think this is heading towards an ending of Cooper versus Cooper. I don't think we're going to get a climatic fight, over the falls of two Coopers battling to the death.
Yes. Yeah, that's been done.
I think we could get another like Red Room confrontation. I think we could frankly get some version of like Red Room combat.
Are you nervous at all? Are you nervous at all that at the end of this series that Cooper's gonna be just restuck in the lodge again? That's over. And it's.
I actually lean your direction, Cameron, because you've made a lot on these podcasts about at heart, David Lynch is a romantic. At heart, David Lynch, is on the side of the angels.
Right.
Meaning that if this final story, that we can agree it's a story, final story is about anything, it's some sort of redemptive arc for the character of Dale Cooper, some sort of final story of Dale Cooper.
And Laura.
And Laura, right. And so I think, again, how do you define happy ending? I don't know, but I do think it's moving in that direction. So do I think there's going to be a confrontation with the doppelganger in some form? I do. Similar to how we've said anything, I don't know that it's going to take the form, the traditional form that we might anticipate that it would. They could be like throwing balls of cream corn at each other for all we know. but that's. I mean, I do believe there's going to be a happy ending in some form. Some end, I don't think Cooper's gonna be stuck in the Red Room again. I don't think.
But I don't think it's also gonna be Cooper and Laura standing in the kitchen looking at the Red Robin out the window, Blue Velvet style. I think it's gonna be somewhere in between.
I think there may be some of that. I think that the as Cooper regains his Cooperness, as he learns and becomes more the traditional Coop that we yearn to see as longtime fans of the show. That maybe Twin Peaks, that old feel will come back. Maybe that's why we're disoriented. And as Cooper's odyssey to find himself happens more and more, and he becomes whole again, maybe the town of Twin Peaks will somehow heal and become more like what we saw in the original series.
Right. And that's when Badalamenti scores, I think, is going to kick it in. Some people have said, do you think that season 3 back in 1991 would have been like this new show? No, I don't.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
I think you need that time to process it. Some people are saying, do you think this, this could have a bleak ending? It could have a bleak ending. Yeah, it could, but I just can't see Cooper, just blowing his head off like Mulholland Drive at the end, and that's the end of the show.
Maybe he'll turn into the little gold nub, egg or whatever.
Hey, you know what? Listen. This was brought up to me the other day by Chaz, who was on this podcast right before the show's premiered. And he said to me, Cameron, Cooper, gold ring, gold marble.
Yeah. Because it seems like Lynch is bringing... Go ahead.
Gold shovels, right? And what was the DVD box called? The gold box. What the hell's going on?
Well, and that's how Ronnie Rocket, the screenplay ends, is Ronnie Rocket turns into a golden egg. Yeah. And there was that little short film that he did, Dream Number 7 or something, where there's a golden egg or golden marble at the end of it. So it's a recurring motif.
He could just be a closet Willy Wonka fan for all we know. I mean, he wants his golden goose. Let me tell you. Okay. I've already said this before, but people are asking like what do I think how the show's going to end? If you want to see me just fall on my face, I'll tell you, because this is not how the show's going to end. But my feeling, if you were to say, okay, what would be the happy ending you would expect? I think the happy ending is Laura is out of the lodge. She's alive again. She's home. It ends with Sarah now 25 years later in the kitchen. Laura, honey, sweetie time, as breakfast or whatever. And now instead of an empty staircase, Laura comes down the stairs, and now mom's not alone anymore, and she's with Laura, and the whole thing's come full circle. No, she's not a high school student anymore, but she's back home. Mm-hmm. That's where, and then I don't know about Cooper, but I think that Laura, I just have a sense that they're not going to just leave Sarah just sitting alone in a house smoking that many cigarettes watching those nature documentaries. I think they're going to give her some sort of happy closure too. I mean, that's just my feeling.
And given again, I sort of thought that was a long shot until we actually saw the first 4 parts. And the fact that the Laura Palmer character is kind of, again, there's a few things going on, and Cooper still needs to remember who the heck he is, but he has a very strong mission statement. Like, again, Twin Peaks is very surrealistic. There's a lot of things that are unclear. One thing that was not clear is that Leland Palmer told Dale Cooper, find Laura. And Laura said, I am dead, yet I live. So Laura's going to play a big role in this, or at the very least in maybe a Luke Skywalker-ish Force Awakens way, like will drive a lot of what we're seeing. How that takes its form, I don't know, but I think you're more right than you know.
And that's when you were watching the show, you sitting here like this, like, oh my God, that son of a bitch Cameron may be right. Jesus Christ.
It made me start. I got to tell you, when I saw that, I started to wonder, like, did that bastard get a hold of a script or something?
No.
Because how could he possibly get this close? Again, we've only seen 4 parts, but
Right.
it just seemed like, wow, like what a out of left field kind of a development.
It's if there's any truth to anything that I say, it's just because that I've internalized this show for my entire like youth, from age 14 till how old ever I am now. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's been living in me for so long that I feel like I kind of know their sensibilities and where they would go if they, but again, they surprise me all the time. These first four episodes, I never thought the show would be like this. So,
but I mean, you're right in saying that, I mean, Laura has always been the one for Lynch. That's,
right.
And the fact, that beautiful scene where she takes off her face and said, I'm dead, but yet I live. And that white light life force is still in her, despite her circumstances and how she got to where she's at.
Right.
That life force still exists,
Right.
And so it wouldn't surprise me that she somehow gets out of the lodge and gets born again or something, because that's kind of what he's doing with Cooper. If you look at Cooper is kind of born again, not to get, religious or have Christian implications, but he's sort of playing a Messiah figure. If you think about it, he was reborn into the Sin City, of Las Vegas. And then, he's helping people's lives, like the old lady who's flipping the bird, and now he's like, look at how he changed her heart,
Right.
Now she's like, oh, Mr. Jackpot, oh, thank you, So he has that touch.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, Lynch has just working with Cheryl Lee. I mean, she plays Laura Palmer's dead body. He brings her back as Madeline Ferguson. He kills her off as Madeline Ferguson. He brings her back in the final episodes as Laura, the doppelganger, and Madeline. Then brings her back in Fire Walk with Me, only to kill her again. And now she's back as Laura Palmer and saying she lives. I mean, it's like when Cheryl Lee says she believes in reincarnation, it's like, yeah, no shit. I mean,
but, and we got a tease of this when Lynch did the on the
Between Two Worlds.
Between Two Worlds, that piece on the missing pieces set, where there was the interview with Sarah, Leland, and Laura, and Laura talks a lot about there's lots of things people don't know, and just the fact that he kind of is talking to that character again, who still seemed very troubled. The end of Fire Walk with Me, you see a Laura that seemed free, seemed happy, seemed like the angel did rescue her, like she finally escaped her hell. But the Laura we then see in that little vignette definitely does not seem to be in that same place.
Right.
Playing with this conception of, maybe purgatory, or she is in hell, or, something other.
Hell, I mean, some people believe that she was the spirit that broke out of the glass and killed Sam and Tracy. And I don't believe that, because I don't believe Lynch would turn Laura Palmer into a murderess. So,
into a big monster.
I don't really see that right now. I mean, of course things could happen, but all right, so let's get into just a couple quick things. One is, I find it very funny that it seems to be all over the place, that when Gordon Cole's interrogating Evil Cooper, that people are talking about how he says very backwards, right?
Yes.
I didn't even catch that detail until I read it. That was a good catch.
But what I find so funny, though, is this podcast talked about that like 3 days ago, and now it's all over the internet. So again, this is the podcast for the hardcore people, So just saying, it's just funny that it's just kind of everywhere, and it's on the websites, and on the Twin Peaks stuff, and even the mainstream press. And I'm just like, man, the fans who watch this show are sending me this information like days or a week ago. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like, you know. So you guys keep it up. You guys are doing the Lord's work here.
Dallas Street says they need to tie up the storylines on Invitation to Love. Amen.
Oh yeah. Okay, so a couple things. One is that Renee wrote me back. She came up with this theory that just literally scared the living hell out of me. I told her that if this becomes true, I will turn into Cousin Del and just start screaming like a madman. And that is, she said, what if Annie Blackburn is a construct of the Black Lodge, like Dougie, perhaps, and that she was sent out into the world to get Cooper back into the lodge? Or into the lodge. And I said to her, if that happens, I will go insane. Anyway, but she wrote back and said that she didn't know. She came up with this theory herself, but then she happened to watch a video by the Vlog Lady, who does a lot of videos on YouTube about Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And I guess she also brought up a similar theory. So that's two people now with this theory. If Annie Blackburn turns out to be that, I will be irritated. I will go with it. I will accept it, but I will be mad.
Well, it would feel like a retcon to me. That wouldn't feel like what that character was originally intended.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the character was originally definitely intended as a love interest for Dale Cooper, a real person who was Norma's sister. If they changed that to being something else, I mean, it's their privilege. Right. They made this whole thing, but that will feel to me kind of like a cop-out if that's what turns out to happen.
Okay, let me say this. This comes from Benjamin. He writes to me, when the doppelganger was downloading maps and designs onto his computer. Okay, let me just pause there for a second. This show is so dense. I know I mentioned this probably the other day, but this show is so dense that a lot of people don't realize this, is that before the doppelganger kills Daria, he says, so Ray was put into a prison for transporting guns across the state line. And Ray is the only one that could have extracted this information from Betty, presumably Betty Briggs, from the Hastings principal character, the Matthew Lillard character. So when the doppelganger is in the jail, right? A lot of people assume that, well, he was in the car crash and they found the cocaine and the machine gun and the dog's leg, so he got sent to that prison. Well, obviously the evil doppelganger didn't know he was going to get in that car crash, but I believe that he was on his way to that prison and had the gun on him so that maybe if he did get picked up, he knew that the closer he got to that prison, the closer he would be put into that prison so he could confront Ray about this information. I don't think that he's in there accidentally. I think that was his mission. He just happened to get there anyway, and now he's got 2 days before Gordon Cole gets him back. So I think in episode 5, I have no idea, but I believe in episode 5, episode 6, we're going to see him in prison life trying to, get to Ray and get this information. Anyway, that's just my theory. But anyway, Benjamin says, okay, so when the doppelganger was downloading the maps, basically, of the prison onto his computer, he caught this screenshot, and he sent me this picture. And it says, it appears to read Trancom Olympus City Office at the top. He goes on to say, so I looked up those words and was brought to a blog for an RPG game where the exact design is posted. He goes, not sure if this means anything, but isn't that interesting? So that is really interesting. And then we have Mandy here who wrote me, and she has all kinds of ideas. She says, going back to the glass box, I was always under the impression the billionaire is the same person that Mr. Todd references, someone that he hopes you never have to know, the doppelganger Cooper. If anyone is going to watch the box waiting for good Cooper to finally escape or figure his way out, maybe because Laura finally gave him the okay, then it would be him. there are very few coincidences in Twin Peaks. I can't see Mrs. Houseman's friends that Ben and Jerry were discussing from New York having anything to do with the box or the billionaire. This could also work if the billionaire got his money through gambling, i.e. Dougie. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think the doppelganger could be in charge? I mean, he could be, but I mean, what is the probability of him in charge of the glass box, do you think?
Just because the doppelganger seems so tied up in so many other things, I feel like it's someone else. I don't think it's him.
I agree.
I don't think it's Audrey like some people think, but I do think it's someone else, not the doppelganger.
But I right now I'm leaning towards it's somebody we know.
Yes.
You do think it's somebody we already know, not a brand new character.
Yeah, and someone has floated this theory out to me. I could get on board with this. I don't know how this character would, know anything about this. Maybe because of the scenario that she stated to Harry Truman. Could it be Catherine Martell? Could they bring Piper Laurie into this? Because I mean, she did have some sort of experience with the White Lodge. She tells Harry Truman about it. I mean, it is played up as a joke towards the end, but I mean, she does talk about being at Pearl Lakes. I mean, she's rich enough.
Anything's possible. I find that to be a little less likely, just because I think you'd have to do some like narrative twisting. It would almost sort of be just to get her involved,
right?
And I don't know. That's just not a spin on that character I see them taking.
Right.
I don't think she's not involved because she's not listed in the cast. I just don't think that's the direction they would go with that character.
All right. How about this? Why are the trees at Glastonbury Grove still the same size 25 years later?
I didn't perceive that they were.
Okay.
We didn't see them clearly enough to. I thought they were bigger, but it's just the way it was shot. It was in the dark. It definitely seemed like they were bigger to me. And maybe I just didn't see it clearly enough to say for sure. They didn't seem like they were 25 years bigger, though. I'll agree with that. They definitely didn't seem like they grew as much as I expected they would, like a normal tree would.
Right.
Is the evolution of the arm, is that a sycamore tree?
That's a good question.
Do you think Bob is actually in Matthew Lillard? Do you think that character we see in the other cell was Bob or another inhabiting spirit?
My perception was that it was Bob, and that was kind of the shocking reveal of that. But I mean,
people have said it's Bob, but I didn't see the resemblance there. I saw somebody compare it to the woodsman in Fire Walk with Me, German Prochnow or whatever, and it actually looked more like that.
It looks like a combination of that mixed with the homeless person in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah,
exactly.
But you know what, though? I will say this, that, when Dougie's on the ground and he gets like blown back, and he goes into the lodge, I think that is now what Lynch and Frost are visually portraying what happened to Chris Isaac in Fire Walk with Me.
I agree with that.
I heard you say that if they could go back, he wouldn't just freeze and dissolve. It would actually have that.
Right. Well, because he doesn't actually grab the ring. It pauses and then it fades, right?
Right.
I think that if we're watching this show and can believe what we're seeing, I do think that right after that fade out, he got blown back somewhere. He got taken somewhere, because he does disappear, just like Dougie disappears.
Yeah, and there's all those connections too. There's the ring. There's the numb arm. There are so many things. And again, Chet didn't have his arm wasn't numb, but there were so many connections and parallels with that. I'm with you. I think that's about as close.
Listen,
to that
we
as
may not hear anything about Chet Desmond. We may not see Chris Isaac again, but I will say that judging just from that Dougie scene, we can now make assumptions as to a potential fate for Chet Desmond.
Right.
What do you guys think of? What do you guys think about my the Rancho Rosa theory? That because he's he lives on Lancelot Court, down from Merlin's Market, Sycamore Street. Rancho Rosa has got the double R circled on the sign. This is a wild theory, but because the change comes out of the the slot machines, it's either, another time, 10, 15, 20 years ago, because Dougie certainly doesn't look modern the way he's dressed and everything, or it's a complete alternate reality. Because some people have brought up the idea that Naomi Watts with the young boy has the red balloons, and so does the crack addict and her kid. She has a red balloon in her house too. Now that could just be, just kind of fun Lynch connections, or it could symbolize something else, a connection. I mean, do you think that where Rancho Rosa is, because it connects to other characters, that it is an actual reality, or because you guys are Lost fans, could it be, Sideways World?
I think it's probably more akin to the way that Deer Meadow was kind of like a twisted mirror version of Twin Peaks, where, in Twin Peaks, Sheriff Truman and Andy and Lucy are all very friendly, welcoming to Dale Cooper, whereas in Deer Meadow, they're mean, they try to reject the FBI, they outwardly attack them, and then, the diner is this twisted bad version, the food's no good, it's awful. I think Rancho Rosa is probably of a kind there, where it's this kind of twisted version of Twin Peaks, where it's, again, the characters are crack addicts. It's, the neighborhood is, kind of empty and desolate. That was my take on it. You could be right. I'm not sure how much I buy the kind of alternate version stuff. I know Lynch was doing variations of that in some of his other movies, his other works. I don't know. I'm not ready to buy that is what's happening here, personally.
I mean, to me, it's either, like I said, either an alternate reality, or because is it future, is it past, he just went to a different time. I mean, that's something we've been talking about for a while, is that we didn't believe that this entire show is going to be some complete, this all takes place in the same time, that we probably would be bouncing back and forth. And, Hal, you brought up the Black Lodge in this new show. I mean, did you ever think that we would be, the first shot of this new series is the Black Lodge, then the second shot of this new series is the Black Lodge right after the opening credits, or at least the Gray Room, or the Gray Lodge, as people like to say now. So it's fascinating that we are spending so much time here, but it's also like amazing as a fan to be spending so much time there,
We thought as longtime fans that we kind of had a handle on how to navigate the Red Room or the Black Lodge, but he opened it up so much that you can't fathom the nature of the lodges. And hopefully there's more to come now that kind of Coop's out of there. I hope they don't just we don't see the lodges for a while. I hope we continue to explore that world.
Michael Lewis just wrote in and says, is it possible that Naomi Watts and her son are the Chalfonts, and maybe Dougie is Wyndham Earl manufactured? Ooh, that's interesting.
What about the lady, the 119 lady and her little boy? Could they have any sort of parallel to the Chalfonts or the Tremonts?
Right.
Well, that's why I was bringing up the fact that they both those mothers and sons had the red balloons in there. Only one was screaming 911 backwards in an episode called "Call for Help."
Yes.
Eric, you look like you're about to bust at the seams. What's going on?
Well, I'm starting to think, again, I'm not sure about the parallel universe stuff, but I am starting to wonder about the time and the way that the plugs in the basement of the Red Room, whatever we want to call it, they change from 15 to 3. What if 15 is 2015, the year that we are in the present? Because remember, this is 25 years, so they're not in 2017, they're in 2015. And what if 3 is 2003?
Right.
But isn't the 315 a reference to his room at the Great Northern?
True. But what I do want to say is, in 2003, slot machines were still giving out coins.
Right. And that's because I was sort of resisting your thought about that. But what if that is very telling? What if that is what that? Again, who knows? We could be completely off on this, but I'm starting to wonder, because I've been trying to figure out, like, why did those numbers change? Like, what is that significant to? And that's true. His room number is 315, but what if? Because we keep and again, to your point about, well, what if we're gonna have to go back to the lodges at some point? What if we literally have to go back to the lodges because Cooper has to get to the right time? He has to get to the right. To face off with the doppelganger or whatever that's going to be. he's got to get where he is.
Mm-hmm. It's like Back to the Future Part 2. You're not going to believe this, Doc. We have to go back to 1955. I don't believe it. You know, I mean, it's going to be right. Cooper's going to be like, I got to go through the Black Lodge again. Shit.
Someone just wrote that the expiration on Dougie's license plate is 2003.
There you
Holy
go.
crap.
There you go.
Wow.
I've been
Did
wanting
we just blow this wide open?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I've been wanting to see Dougie's license plate for a while, and if it is 2003, then that makes sense because you have a manufactured person for whatever that means in a manufactured home community, because that's what that home development is called. And yeah, so I mean, that's why I think maybe this could be in a completely manufactured world, or it's just, you know, the bottom of the pit, you know, where the Black Lodge dumps you out if they don't want you there, you know.
So now all those homes for sale in Rancho Rosa, is it because people have vacated them, or it's a new development that hasn't been occupied?
You would think it would be a new development, but then that crack lady doesn't look like she just moved in either. So,
well, I mean, developments are under development for years. I mean, she could have been there for 3 years. I mean, those things sometimes take like 3-5 years to be finished.
Those crackers her son was eating looked like they were about 3 years old too. So, anyway, I don't want to keep you guys on here too long, so we can start wrapping this up. I just want to do a short episode, but
Cameron,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I all of a sudden started looking for a picture, and Twin Peaks Archive had a tweet that they said, "Is it future or is it past? Keep an eye on the license plates." I'm now trying to find pictures of the license plates. Holy crap, we might have stumbled on something here. Holy cow.
Well, whatever we stumble on is probably going to be shown in episode 5. So, because I had somebody message me and they didn't go into any detail, but they did message me and they said, "We just saw episode 5 and holy crap, you're right." I don't know what that was in reference to. I don't know if Laura Palmer is alive and hop, skipping, and jumping down the streets of Twin Peaks, or whether we're in an alternate reality or different times. I don't know what was going on, but I think that yeah, it's true. Episode 5 was dropped overseas for 2 hours. A lot of people saw it. I don't know too many people were talking about it. Probably on Reddit they're talking about it. But I made a joke yesterday that I think Blinky from David Lynch's On the Air just hit the wrong button. He's over there just hitting the button wrong over there, just sending out episodes randomly. And
at least he didn't drop part 18.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what we were talking about before the podcast. Was that what if they drop episode 17 and 18 early, and we're on episode 5? No, that'd be terrible. Anyway. Yeah, I agree with Steve. What happened to Donna? Are we hopefully, you know, I don't want to just hear James was in a bike accident and Donna got killed or something.
Well, David Lynch has even said regarding Donna, this story doesn't involve her.
Well, that's weird because she was so important. He recast her in Fire Walk with Me.
Right. I am still of the opinion that he is. Again, lying sounds nefarious, but I think he's trying to hide the fact that there are people who are returning, and he just didn't put them in the cast list. I still believe that. Like I'm actually not convinced we won't see Harry S. Truman. The fact that he's sick and not dead, to me seems fishy. If he wasn't gonna, like, why would he just be? He'd be dead or he'd be gone.
You don't mention a gun in the first act if you don't bring it out in the third.
Amen.
Will we see more Log Lady?
I think so.
I think we'll get at least one more.
Yeah,
because she does tell Hawk, you know, you got to look for this stuff and everything. But to just leave it at that, and then like episode 12, find out, oh, Log Lady passed. I don't know. It'd be weird.
That would be sad.
I think that they'll probably maybe at the happy ending, she'll call up Hawk and be like, "You did good, Hawk. You did good," you know, or something like that. And of course, people are floating around that image from. You know, the second season, right before Cooper thinks he's going to leave town the first time, when the Mountie comes in and with Clancy Brown arrests them, where he says to Hawk, you know, if I'm ever lost, I hope you are the man they send to find me.
Agreed.
So that's playing a role here. But, you know, we've been predicting that for a long time on this channel. People have been asking, like, how is Cooper going to get out of this lodge? And I've always said it would come down to 4 people: Hawk, Ronette, Log Lady, and Major Briggs. two of those actors are dead, and Hawk's here and Ronette. We've seen Ronette, we've seen Hawk, and yet Cooper got out by himself, or perhaps with the assistance of Judy. Right now I believe that the Asian woman that we see as blind is Josie's sister, Judy. And new revelations have come out that if you look at her and you look at the picture very clearly, you will see a chunk of her cheek has been taken out of her face, and that could be the piece of meat in the back of the trunk in Hastings' car.
Huh.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
So food for thought. But anyway, all right, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. I know you guys have things to do, and but Hal, I want you to come back on. We have so much more to talk about, especially after episode 5. We'll process it even more. But
let's do it.
All right. So Hal, where are you right now? Twin Peaks fan. I know you're digging this new show, but where are you right now emotionally?
Loving it, and I love the fact that some of my friends, like I got one of my friends that I watched seasons 1 and 2 with way back when on a rewatch for me, but first time through for her. She saw me kind of being quiet as far as comments on Facebook right after the season or parts 1 and 2 aired, and so she goes, "Hey Hal, your silence speaks volumes. Be honest now. Do you think it sucked as much as I did? I think it was slow and horrible." And I was just like, "Whoa, back off. I'm just processing. Stay with it. You're gonna like it. You will be rewarded. Don't snap judgment." And then she watched it. She watched it again and watched 3 and 4. And now she's like, "Okay, I'm on board. I get it." So I'm happy to see people adjusting to the shock of the new. And riding with it. And I love the critical response. And me personally, I cannot wait for Sunday night.
Would you agree with me that if you are taken aback by this new show, if you don't really are grooving to it, to rewatch it? Because to me, I feel like the rewatches, I really, really loved the show the first time, but I think the more you rewatch it and the more you kind of get into the spirit of it, I think it plays better and better and better. And Eric and I mentioned this the other night, is what seems so radical and surreal and bizarre and mind-blowing, and it is. I do think that when you rewatch it, you start to go, yeah, you know what? It's actually pretty linear. It actually is telling a story that is easy to comprehend and follow, but you have to get into the right mind frame for it. But if you do, I think what it is we waited 25 years, we got the missing pieces, now we get this, we're sitting down Sunday night and we're like what the hell is all this stuff? It begins in the in the Gray Lodge or the black and white scene of Dale Cooper, Richard and Linda, and you're like, what the hell, what, you know what I mean? And then you go back and you rewatch it and you go, oh, this is wonderful. I mean, this is just absolutely wonderful.
And your brain is trying to process those clues, because that's what we do with the mysteries of Twin Peaks. And then some of those scenes are infuriating with the drawn out, or like the Wally Brando stuff, because it seems not to be moving forward with the stuff you want to see, but that's part of the whole of Twin Peaks. That's part of the pleasure of it. So yeah, the rewatching, I think, just rewards and rewards and rewards.
Yeah, I think it's just I think it's a show that actually has gotten better and better and better. And I've seen some of these episodes 3 or 4 times now, and it's even better now than it was the first time I saw it.
Yes.
So I mean, hats off to Lynch and Frost for pulling off what in today's modern age is almost impossible to do. A show that you can rewatch over and over and over again and not be tired of it.
I had another friend who was more of a casual fan, but he's, I said, you gotta get on board here. So he finally watched 3 and 4, and he texted me and said, the first 30 minutes of episode 3 are the most surreal thing I've ever had the pleasure to watch. So it's just so cool to see people that maybe are more casual to really be into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. People in the chat are talking about something that may or may not happen in this new series. You know, we got reached out to by some people that worked on this on the set, and I said, well, is there anything you could give us for the fans? And they told me these like sporadic things that just made no sense whatsoever, right? I mean, it would be like someone saying, yeah, Cooper on a space station and Major Briggs's head appears. You know, it's like, what? Right? Anyway, they told me this stuff. I'm not going to repeat it here, but they told me this stuff. I was like, that's so weird. I don't even understand this. So I made a little video saying, okay, so here's what we were able to share. There's this. I don't know if this is real. There's this. I don't know if it's real. What do you guys think? Blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, then it came down from Showtime that, shh, don't talk about that stuff. So whatever I said, apparently it might or may not be in the show, but it was enough to get Showtime's knickers in a bunch. So, but to be honest, I have no idea what I said. So, you know,
or how it relates to what we've already seen.
No, I mean, if somebody said to you, you know, any of the, like Eric said the other night, we did the episode 3 rewatch. I said, don't watch this if you haven't seen episode 3 yet. And Eric said, yeah, because if you do, you're going to think we're insane of the things we're describing, because you're not going to believe this is in Twin Peaks, right? So anyway, but if you guys are interested in that video, it's on this channel. Just dig, you'll find it. It's a short video. It's under 15 minutes. So, but yeah, I have no idea if it's true or not, but I did find it fascinating. If that happens, but to be honest, I have no idea the context of how or why or what. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It'd be like someone saying, you know, blind Asian woman. It's like, okay. But you know, and she barks a lot in that scene too, right? And of course, you know, Philip Jeffrey says, you know, we don't talk about Judy. So I thought that was interesting. And also the fact that because Philip Jeffries is brought into this and now potentially Judy, that's why I think there's that other connection. So
do you still hold out hope for a surprise Bowie cameo? Or do you think Philip Jeffries will just be talked about? Or do you think he'll be recast? And would you want to see that character recast?
To be honest, I think Philip Jeffries at this point could be anybody, because I think he could evolve just like the Arm. I mean, he's been moving around through time and space for how long? So.
But they started filming September of 15. Bowie died in January of 16. So there would have been a possibility for him to.
And he did do those music videos.
Yes.
So.
And I guess one of the actors said that he was scheduled for a date but was too ill and missed that date. But I still hold out hope for a makeup date at some point that they
maybe. But I mean,
on film.
one thing is for sure, that was not his voice on the machine.
It was not. And
that's what, you know, people have been theorizing as to who that could be. I mean, that could be anybody too. I mean, it almost seemed like a disguised voice. It seemed, you know, that could have been Matthew Lillard in Scream doing that voice for all we know, you know. So surprise, Sydney. But anyway, Eric, where are you right now in your fandom? You know, I know you've been watching the show with the wife as well. Is she liking this, or is she just kind of being nice to you right now?
Well, my wife was a fan of the show. Like I got her into it and we watched it, and I still remember the first time we were talking about it recently. I still remember the first time I showed her, where we watched the final episode of season 2, and I just remember her being, you know, like terrified. Like I specifically remember I always used to pick on my wife. I'd scare her sometimes and put on like a scary mask at Halloween, but you know, she was always very nervous around horror movies. And I distinctly recall the scene where the Laura Palmer, the meanwhile, and then she like rushes at the camera. Yeah. I distinctly remember my wife like shooting back into the couch, like she was going to come out of the TV. So again, she was into it. She liked it. Fire Walk with Me was definitely a different experience, some scary moments there too. But I think episode 3 threw her for a loop. It was very surrealistic, very weird. And again, that first night too, it was 4 straight hours. I think it might just, we have a young daughter, so she was tired. She fell asleep. But we watched episode 4 again, and we actually found ourselves laughing a little bit more. You know, the humor I think comes out when you're not just trying to comprehend what you're seeing.
And keep in mind that we got the equivalent of 2 Fire Walk with Me's in one night.
Yes,
That's a lot of information to process.
it is. It is.
Yeah, I
And
spaced them out. I did 1 and 2 when it aired, and then I went 3 the next night, 4 the following night.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, you have more patience.
No,
You have more patience than I do, man.
I was done with all 4 by 10 o'clock that night.
Again, in Cameron's case, he waited 27 years. I only waited 12, 13. But I had to watch them all. But no, I personally am feeling good. Cameron encapsulates my views quite well in saying that, we're getting what we wanted, but we didn't. It's like we didn't know we wanted it this way or in a form we didn't expect. Like, everything happening. I am shocked by how much. None of this is meeting my expectations, but I mean that in like a positive sense, that I'm not being pandered to, and what I'm seeing, like, I didn't know I wanted it. It's really good. I'm enjoying it. I do wish, if someone in the chat earlier was like, well, what don't you guys like? I'm not a fan of Krista Bell's performance. She's throwing me. She's a little smarmy. It's a little too campy for me. And I think I do miss, maybe not even just Twin Peaks music, but music of any kind. That's why I think the end of episode 2 struck me in a very emotional way. I very much enjoyed the end of episode 2, part 2. And not just because we see Shelley again, not just because we see James again, but because even though it wasn't really Twin Peaks music, it was that Twin Peaks feel. We're in the roadhouse. There's an emotional song playing. Characters are looking around emotionally at one another. That felt very Twin Peaks. That's what I think really drew me back.
I wonder if the reason for the non-scored, up to this point, was to make that scene with Bobby seeing Laura's picture even more impactful when you hear that Angelo Badalamenti,
yes,
Laura's theme swell up. And whether as we get more towards Twin Peaks, as Cooper's Odyssey leads us back to the Twin Peaks that we know and love, whether that music will start to reemerge.
Yes. And actually, I'll be honest too, Cameron, like I find myself reeling from just kind of this thought process we were going down, like whether or not Cooper's in a different time than the other people we're talking about. And it's just got me thinking about all that stuff. So I might seem sort of distant right now, but it's like I'm trying to wrap my mind around that. It seems odd. Like I was trying to figure out what those numbers are, and to our point, the point you were making earlier about things just are very straightforward. If you just logically watch it, it's telling you exactly what you need to know. And we're trying to divine some philosophical meaning out of 15 and 3. What if it's very literally telling us exactly it is what it means it is? It's literally a number of a year. You were going to go here. Now you're going to go here. Mm-hmm. And if that is what they're doing, like, holy cow, genius. That's insane.
If I was to pick one thing so far that I'm not a fan of, even though it's not too troubling to me, but it is something I'm like, is that I don't want every episode to end with a Roadhouse performance.
Yes.
I think I'd agree with that too.
Because at the end of episode 2, it ties into the story. James and Shelley and the music. That's very Twin Peaks-ish. The next 2 episodes are literally like the episode stops for a performance and credits roll. I mean, has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
And even when Albert says at the end of episode 4, I know where she drinks, and then it cuts to the Roadhouse, we think we're going to get a scene of, like, we're going to see somebody who's drinking or someone.
Right.
And it's just a song performance. Now, I do want to say, though, I'm glad that, see, you are a real, true fan of Twin Peaks, because you can tell the not true fans of Twin Peaks, the newbies, as I refer to them as, because in their articles, they don't call it the Roadhouse. They call it the Bang Bang Bar.
Bang Bar, yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
It's not the Bang Bang Bar. Nobody's ever referred to it once as the Bang Bang Bar.
I kind of miss the old Roadhouse. I'm not sure I like the modern Roadhouse, because in the original series, the Roadhouse was kind of a haunted place. It seemed more haunted. Now it seems more like, hey, here's the latest music video to promote the forthcoming soundtrack album.
Well, Eric and I were talking about that. It reminded us of Buffy and the Bronze and stuff, the club that they would go to. It's just, and this was said on James's podcast the other day, there's quite a possibility that Trent Reznor does not have a role in this show, but he might just be a musical guest at the end of an episode.
Right. It's like Eddie Vedder is just going to show up at the Roadhouse and play his tune. You know?
Right.
Like,
But, no. This whole thing with Wally Brando, he shows up like, Marlon Brando in The Wild One, but in reality, he could also be dressing up as a Bookhouse boy. I mean, he kind of looks like Joey Paulson in the pilot.
He does. He does.
I actually, when I saw the guy with James for a second, I thought I was supposed to know. I thought he was like Joey Paulson or something.
Right.
Because Joey Paulson, just the look of the guy, it seems like he could still look like a young guy even now, 25 years later.
Yeah.
At first, I thought I was supposed to know him, but it really did seem like he was some guy James was bringing there for the first time, just based on the dialogue, anyway.
I like the fact that Wally Brando made a Godfather reference too. That's pretty funny.
Well, and it's like, and why the hell do we know Joey Paulson's name anyway? He only shows up in the damn pilot. He never comes back again in the show, and yet for some reason we really like Joey Paulson. I don't know, but it's like he never comes back. But it's just kind of funny how we remember little characters like that, but we can't remember what happened last week in our own lives. So
here's a question that like my mind is twisting now. The exchange we hear between Gordon and Albert, where Albert makes reference to this event in his past years ago. He says that he took a call from Philip, and it was supposed to be helping Coop. What if we are going to see that, because the events he's referencing are things that are about to be lived out by Cooper in 2003? My mind is just exploding right now. I'm sorry. I'm very happy and excited about this.
Frank, who's been on this podcast before, he wanted to remind me that Joey is in 3 episodes, not just the pilot. I remember now that he was in the Bookhouse when they're interrogating Bernard.
Yep.
But I can't remember the other episode he was in.
I'm trying to think if he was like a runner for, like, they sent him to get something and he kind of just served a very perfunctory, like he was just there, like he didn't do anything really.
Right.
Joey Paulson's the billionaire.
Well, no, but that's why I only thought they was in the pilot at first, because he doesn't do anything else in the rest of the series. He's very proactive in the pilot. Come on, Don, I'll take you to James, and he does anything remotely interesting again in the show. Frank says when they rescued Audrey,
he was in that one?
He was in that scene?
See, that's the thing. Maybe if he's just like standing around in the Bookhouse in that scene, maybe that doesn't surprise me.
Mandy says, I'm pretty sure it was just the pilot in the Bookhouse scene. I don't remember Joey Paulson showing up in season 2 raiding One-Eyed Jacks across the Canadian border. But I do hope if Lynch is going to show some violence in this show, I hope Hawk gets to throw his knife again. Only this time we see him pull it out of someone's back, not just grab the handle.
I remember watching that scene. Speaking of watching it with my wife, I watched it with my wife and a good friend of mine, and I remember that whole action scene of them, raiding One-Eyed Jacks, and then the guy catches them with the gun, and all of a sudden the guy drops. I just remember my friend and I, because then it's Hawk like leaning down the stairs. He just killed him. I remember my friend and I going, yeah, just being like really happy about that.
100Z Mad says maybe Tamara Preston will get up on stage and play as Christabel at the Roadhouse.
Oh Lord.
Listen, I don't even know who Christabel is, except the fact that she did music with David Lynch. I haven't, until recently, I had not seen her music videos where she literally dresses herself up as Laura Palmer at one point and dances around in plastic. But I gotta say, it's just Lynch has worked with musicians as actors before, right? Chris Isaak, David Bowie. It's happened many, many times. This is the only time that I can really say so far it's taken me out of the scene. Chris Isaak, he's not the best actor, but he still has sort of like he's not trying to call attention to himself that he's Chris Isaak playing Chet Desmond. Right.
His take on that character, though, like I feel like it works within the context of what they're doing. He kind of comes off as this kind of aloof, sort of tough guy sort of thing. And it works in the context of that scene. She's in these scenes with all these other characters, and like she's the only one behaving in this odd way.
Right. Twiller Zone reminded me, of course, of Sting in Dune, another musician he's worked with. So, I don't know. I mean, hopefully Tamara Preston gets a more likable character. Because, like, you know what? When she says that line of "you told me to," okay, it's a little over the top. I can manage, but the next is unforgivable. The close up, the head of and she turns her head. It's just no. Lynch should have done a take 2 on that one. Because it's a little much.
She, especially in these great scenes with Gordon and Albert. We really don't need Tamara to interject.
And I guess the main, if it was just the side character, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But because she is the main character of Mark Frost's book,
right,
I kind of expect a little more from her portrayal in the new show. Like, I kind of expect Jodie Foster in The Silence of the Lambs or something.
Yeah.
I wish they could get the actress from the book, Annie Wershering. Like, she's a good actress, like, and pretty too. She would fit the whole thing. Like, it's, it is what it is now. But she is. If I had to pick one thing, I think I'd pick her. She's taking me out of it in the scenes that she's in.
Agreed.
Yeah, but overall, we love the new show.
Yes.
Yeah. There's not too much to complain. And even the stuff I can complain about, it's really minuscule. I mean, but I mean, I think all the performances are fantastic so far of the main characters we've seen. I think Kyle MacLachlan, obviously, like everybody else saying, just is kicking ass and knocking this out of the Black Lodge.
Yes.
I mean,
he better win an Emmy for this.
He's going to win.
His reaction shots as he moves through the lodge, you never forget. I mean, he seems to never forget that it's like, this is completely disorienting, but I know I have to go through it. It's just so perfect.
But then you compare that to the doppelganger, and you can't even believe it's the same actor.
Yeah.
Then you look at Dougie, and you can't believe it's the same person either.
It's unbelievable.
And I love the fact that they're really pushing his talent, and he's so game for it. And so when he's told his story before, where they sent him the script and he read it, I can see why he immediately said yes to this, because this is, maybe if Fire Walk With Me had given him something like this to play, maybe he wouldn't have not wanted to be a part of that movie.
It's a true tour de force for Kyle.
Right. And the fact that it's so long and we're able to, really delve into this material, he's not having to just kind of play, Evil Cooper for a couple scenes. And, I mean, he's really getting to like delve into that character deep. So
yeah. The interview he just gave today, which again, I wish I could remember exactly where I read it. I think I posted it on Twin Peaks Worldwide. If you guys are subscribing to that, you should. But since he can now actually answer substantive questions about the show, Kyle MacLachlan actually talks about that he was nervous about doing it. He said, when I read the script and I saw they were going to have me doing all this stuff, I don't know. That he's like, I wasn't sure. He's like, but David made me feel safe about it. And just to watch him do it, like, he's doing so well. Like, I can't imagine, like, why would you ever be insecure about this? Like, you are kicking ass, man. And I'll be honest, I think the thing that works for Kyle is sort of what works when, like, John Boy Walton appears in something and he's like the villain. Because you have this image of the actor, of the character, this pure of heart, really good person, that when you put them in a role where they are evil or nefarious or whatever, it kind of has this additional level of gravity. So, like, I think that's what's working for Kyle MacLachlan here too, is generally speaking, he usually doesn't play this kind of character. So when he is being this like evil dude who's like, killing women in beds and beating up guys on staircases, it's powerful. It's really working well. I'm enjoying that part of it a lot.
And I mean, some people have found it like comical, which is wild to me. I understand there's a level of humor to it, but I don't think it's like played like as a comedy.
No.
And while I think he's really effective in all those scenes, and I praise the hell out of all those moments, the scene that gets me is the interrogation with Gordon Cole, because now he's captured, now he's behind glass, and yet he still seems menacing,
yes.
right? Like he seems even more menacing behind the glass than he does in the bed with Daria. Because he's not just like, shut up, Daria. Now he's in the glass trying to play nice Cooper, and he's coming off like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2.
Yes.
Hello, old friend. And then the smile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Can you imagine what the debriefing scene with Gordon is going to be like?
Okay,
I don't want that scene to happen. Like, I'm terrified for Gordon.
Yeah. He might, now if he rips apart, Krista Bell right in front of Gordon, maybe
decapitates her.
But I love that scene where Gordon says, "I want him to have his private phone call, and I want to hear all about it."
Right, his private phone call. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and that's when like Gordon means business, man.
Yeah.
He's not just like, give the man his rights. He's like, I want him to have his rights, but you're gonna tell me everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And
in fact, you should wire the phone call. But Cooper or Doppelganger Cooper is in that prison not just because he got caught because he got in that car accident. It's the fact that, he wanted to be in there as well. One more point I want to bring up, because this was brought up the other day, and I think it'd be really good just to talk with you guys about it. One new thing about this new series that we didn't know before, because everything like Fire Walk With Me brings up a new concept that it wasn't Cooper possessed by Bob. It was Cooper stuck in the lodge and the bad one got out. That was a new thing that brought up. This one is, so far, it's the idea that, like Terry Gilliam's film Time Bandits, you don't have to be in Glastonbury Grove to go into the Red Room. Now the red drapes can appear anywhere.
Yes.
Because when Cooper's stuck in the car, having that great scene where he's puking out the cream corn and the burnt engine oil, you see the red drapes come up, right? And it's like, wow. So basically, when the Black Lodge wants you, the Black Lodge wants you.
Right. It's like when he's in Dougie's house, he sees the one-armed man. You can see me, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's not just like, well, as long as I'm not in Twin Peaks, I'm safe. No, they can come claim you anywhere.
Yes.
The scene in Dougie's house, by the way, I actually think it's noteworthy, because the thing that I like about what's going on in the Black Lodge is, I think as people outside looking into the story, we always sort of thought that the people in the Black Lodge, the entities, whatever, they know what's going on. It's interesting to me that the one-armed man and even the evolution of the arm, they are disoriented by what's happening here. They don't know what's happening. Like, what the doppelganger has done has kind of thrown a wrench into the works. And so they too are sort of unmoored. And I just think it's just really powerful. I mean, you think the whole of Twin Peaks kind of leads up to Dale Cooper entering the Red Room. It's a real place. And that you just get the sense that there's knowledge and power here, and these guys know what's going on. So to see them off balance, I just think it's astounding to me. I'm enjoying so much of what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
And I guess my last question is, where do you think the armed, doppelganger says to Cooper, non-existent? Is that why he's been cast out into a different time? I mean, is he trying to erase Cooper? I mean, what do you think that means, that non-existent line? That line was chosen very carefully. It was broken down into syllables for us.
Yeah. I confess, I've been like, because when I watched it again too, like I was trying to pick up on if there's cues beforehand or after. I don't know. I can't.
Maybe he was non-existent at that point because Dougie was still out, but now that Dougie has disappeared because he was the constructor that manufactured. Now Coop exists because now he's out and exists. But maybe during that period when Dougie was out and Cooper was still in limbo, he was non-existent.
Well, maybe
that's why he was floating in space.
And maybe
that's interesting.
And maybe Cooper exists in a place that's non-existent.
Right.
Well, it's fair to say. So the doppelganger exists in the world. Dougie exists in the world.
Right.
But according to the rules, Cooper can't leave the Black Lodge until the doppelganger like literally they can't occupy, we're told they can't occupy the same space. They'd have to swap. So Cooper, it's maybe saying you are non-existent, like you can't go there. Because remember, he's like looking through the curtain into the world.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. It's a statement of fact.
So who do you think created Dougie? You think the doppelganger created Dougie?
Yes, because he's a decoy. When the lodge wanted to suck him back in, and that's why he had the ring and stuff. because they grabbed onto him instead of the doppelganger. It's the doppelganger's way to avoid having to go back to the lodge.
But they still found him anyway on the road. So they started making him puke up, and they were about to pull him in. And then
because they caught on to the fact that Dougie was manufactured.
Right. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap this up. This was a wonderful episode. I do feel like that we've kind of just cut this episode in half because there's so much to talk about, but I don't want to keep you guys on here forever. So we will come back and talk about more stuff later. But thank you, Hal. Thank you, Eric, for joining me. It's always wonderful.
Always a pleasure.
These are always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you guys know the drill. Like these videos, subscribe to the channel, share the videos. Your support is so wonderful, and appreciate all your wonderful comments and all that great jazz. So you guys take it easy. We will see you soon. Have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.